The following is a conversation with Sophie Carr, the creator of Octoped. She epitomizes being a startup founder, educator, and mother at the same time. It's a conversation about her motivations, the opportunities and challenges of creating digital products in the EdTech world in particular. For me, this conversation was a pure pleasure. I'm inspired by the passion and the positive energy Sophie conveys. I hope it will be equally energizing and inspiring for you. Hi, Sophie. It's a great pleasure for me to be able to talk to you today. And you combine a founder, entrepreneur, educator, and mother at the same time. It's an extremely rare combination. What's more, you can really feel the passion for early childhood education in every word you say and in every aspect of your product. So if we could start with, can you tell us what inspired you to create the Octoped? And was there a specific moment that triggered your action into the EdTech system?
Yeah, hi. There was actually two really pivotal moments for me. The first was the birth of my daughter, and the second one was the release of ChatGPT. So at the time, I was running Octoped Tutor, providing personalized learning experiences for students learning English as a second language. And I was spending hours creating these custom lesson plans for everybody, for each student. And I realized as soon as I started using AI and I went back to work, I realized, wow, I felt like I had superpowers because suddenly my time spent on lesson planning and paperwork was dramatically slashed in half. I mean, I had so much free time, despite being a mother, with all the challenges that come with
and
being
not having time at all, actually.
Exactly. And the sleepless nights and, everything involving, being a mother.
It seems like your product is brought to life from your need, from the need you had yourself, representing the educators' society.
Yeah, and I felt like I had superpowers because I realized this has so much potential. This is so revolutionary. The fact that I'm a new mom and I have all this work to do, and yet instead of spending hours staying up really late or waking up at 5 a.m. to get everything done, I was spending time with my daughter. And I thought, wow, that is really special. To be in that kind of situation and have this new technology to be able to do that, that's where the idea for Octoped came from. So I started reaching out to different AI advisors from just on LinkedIn, to be honest, and asking them, what do I need to know as somebody who doesn't know anything about AI? What should I know? And I learned so much. And from there, I then reached out to 100 educators and I said, okay, what are the biggest problems? Obviously, I have my opinions, but, as a teacher, but as other educators, are they having these same problems? And how can we use technology to solve them? So from there, that's where Octoped just started forming. We took a real stakeholder approach with 4 different apps, one for parents, one for teachers, one for the children, and one for headmasters. And that's
so
where
they will be like a split apps, or will it be all in one? But the visuals will depend on your role in the application, or you have to install the different thing?
No, so each one has their own app. So they install different ones, but they're all connected. So it's kind of like having a Facebook for school, except it's tailored to each stakeholder's individual needs. Because, of course, what a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old needs is very different to what a teacher needs or a headmaster.
Yes, exactly. And they will use different devices as well.
Exactly.
Wouldn't they? Right.
Exactly.
Right. And I'm wondering, because on the one hand, you're a founder, and on the other, and on the second hand, you're a mother. And how do you consider this tool in the future of education of your child? Because if that was the pivotal moment and the moment of conception, let's say, so I guess you envision something in the future for your own child.
Exactly. So I think it's also important to mention that our generation of millennials, we see the world a bit differently because we grew up with these apps. We grew up with technology, but we remember before the technology and we remember after technology.
Exactly.
It's quite unique. So to see the birth of something like Facebook and social media and smartphones, this is special. And I think that from a millennial perspective, there are so many opportunities to use technology to really do a lot of good in the world, especially regarding education and supporting traditional education. So not replacing it by any means. It's not about replacing it. It's about supporting it. And for my daughter personally, I want to make sure that her future is she's got this digital, experience as well as the traditional experience. I think that's really important.
So do you think of this tool or those tools, like all the digital tools that we are creating in this EdTech sphere, as a bedrock for the traditional education, or as an extension to the traditional education?
I would say it's an extension.
Extension, right?
It's like having another arm. And I know in some schools they have.
I would use another arm from time to time.
Yeah, I think we all could. I think as well, a huge part of it was realizing when I was speaking to parents, they were saying, I really want to help my child. And parents, this is so common, doesn't matter where you're from or anywhere in the world, they want to help their child. And some parents are lucky enough that they can afford to buy lots of books, or they can afford private tutoring, or, but some parents aren't that lucky. They want to, but they might not have the financial means to help them. So this was another way that we can provide an extra support for parents to help their child. So it's creating a very collaborative educational experience and taking the pressure off the teachers and kind of, supporting everybody in that community. So we want to build this amazing library where the resources are stored in the cloud, so that even if you are, well, you can be anywhere in the world, if you haven't got the money to buy all the books, that's okay. Because as long as you have an iPhone or an iPad, then you can access these materials. And one thing I've learned from traveling a lot and visiting different places and volunteering in schools is, people might be in poverty, but everybody has access to a smartphone.
Yeah.
So that's why we built it smartphone first, was to make sure that anyone can access these resources and get that support and get the most out of using artificial intelligence and the most out of Octoped.
It's really astonishing. It's really interesting, because you're completely right. We are having all around the world. We are having internet in our pockets, and yet we usually don't use it for educational purposes, at least. And I guess the challenges here are like bringing the young minds something that will interest them, that will caught them, that will engage, and for, like you said, for parents, like something that is affordable, that is super important, I guess, and something to be expected in the near future, and maybe in the even more distant future as well. Right, but I'm wondering also, because you mentioned that you consulted hundreds of educators building your application, and I'm wondering what key challenges you discovered, and how do you help to address them actually in the practical terms?
So the biggest thing we found when we did these interviews, was that the biggest challenge teachers face is time management and paperwork. So 65% of educators in the UK said that they're struggling with time management and paperwork. But what's really interesting is we found that that's actually the root cause of a toxic cycle in education. So because the teachers are spending all their free time, a lot of their free time, staying up late, marking, lesson planning, lesson prep. It all takes a lot of time. So they do this, and then they get very, tired. Some of them burn out, some of them quit. I personally know many teachers that have quit just because they just didn't want to do it anymore. They didn't enjoy it. They were too stressed. So by relieving the pressure of the initial problem, we can help heal this toxic cycle, because what happens is if they are stressed, then they quit. And then we found 60% had problems with staffing resources and retention. Now, if we have teachers leaving, then it's really hard for headmasters to implement long-term strategies. So by having all of this kind of instability that's becoming very normal, it's even happened in Belgium. That's one of the reasons the teachers were protesting this week, is because a lot of them are burnt out, and there's not enough teachers anymore. And they're even having to close some schools and cancel exams because they just don't have the resources, the staffing resources and retention. Now,
right, it's interesting you mention it. And is it something like they are simply saying enough is enough, or was there any like a trigger that actually caused that it happened right now?
I think it's the trigger was the elections are coming up, so they were wanting to, make their voice heard. I mean, it was the first time that all of the unions united, and since 1996, which is amazing. So it's so powerful that all of these teachers got together and just said, "Yeah, enough's enough. We need concrete solutions," and it makes sense, because what happens is, of course, if you then haven't got enough teachers, this can lead to to behavior problems. Children can start, one way or another, for whatever reason, there can start being problems in the classroom. So we found the same thing there. It was 44% of the teachers in England said they had problems with behavior issues. Now, this actually increases the workload for teachers, because then they need to book meetings with parents, they need to write reports, letters, communicate with the parents, however which way they're doing that right now. Most is by email, for example, or even, a typed up letter or handwritten note or something. But then again, that feeds into the same problem of time management and paperwork. And so this toxic cycle just keeps going round and round and round. And it's time to end it. We have the technology now with artificial intelligence. We have the technology to solve that root problem, time management and paperwork, to help, support the teachers also, with different kinds of resources. I've been talking to different headmasters and talking about, well, what do you need? Having videos that are made and designed to support teachers who are struggling or dealing with behavior issues, even parents too, putting those resources in the app, making them readily available to people who are struggling for whatever reason. We identify those reasons, help solve them, put the video on there, and help solve those behavior issues, and help communicate as well. So we added extra features in there for communication to make it effortless, even writing reports. For example, when I was teaching, I had to write a personal letter to each parent every day. Now, you can imagine how long that takes you. If you have 20 children in your classroom, then it's going to take you a really long time. But with AI, you can still have this personalized letter, and it will still be impactful, but it will take you so much less time.
And is Octoped helping with that?
Yes.
Right.
Octoped can help. We have an assistant called Jackie, and she's there. It's only the teachers that have access to Jackie. So the children don't have access to Jackie directly, but the teachers do. So if they need to write a report or make a lesson plan or anything like that, they do it with Jackie, and then Jackie sends it to the app of the child or the parent or the headmaster.
Great. I guess that must speed up the communication.
Definitely. And also improve the quality of the communication, because you have more time to give more details on how they're doing. Because you can chat just like we are with Jackie.
Right, exactly.
and say, oh, Fred was great today. He played with the sandcastles, and, he shared, and, you can talk about, freely like we are now. And then a beautiful report will be generated and sent to the parent.
Yeah. Interesting future, I must say. And you said also that your startup contributes to the UN's 2030 sustainable goals, especially the goal number 4. And could you elaborate on that as well? How exactly are you doing that? And first and foremost, why?
Yeah, there's a few ways. I think it's good to tell you where I was coming from when I really got inspired by this for this app. It came from standing on the beach with my daughter in Cyprus, and we were looking out at the sea and counting warships together. Sounds bizarre, right? We're in Europe.
It is.
We don't normally stand there going 1, 2, 3, 4, but that's what we were doing. And I thought, oh, okay, actually, if something happened, and there was a crisis of some kind, then actually what would happen to education? Is what's in schools now prepared and resilient enough to withstand another crisis, even like the pandemic? So we built Octoped with that in mind. And one of the big ways that it solves that is by making education more resilient. So as we said, it's a complementary system that joins. It's like another arm for the school, which means that if you're learning online or offline, then either way, the child is supported. Whether that lesson needs to be tailored to one child or to 20, AI can support that and make it easy for the teacher to personalize learning and switch to a remote environment. Now, another way is that the children can access their resources. So it's stored in the cloud. So say, for example, if something happens to the school and they can't attend, they don't need to have all their books, or if they have to move quickly, then everything is there. They can continue learning and, just through even a phone. They don't even need an iPad or a computer, just a smartphone, which can be connected to 3G, 4G, whatever is available. So that was another way. Obviously, communication between the parents and the teachers, having that system there also with the children. And finally, supporting the emotional well-being of the children. So, of course, if there is some kind of crisis, mental health becomes a big, important topic.
We've all learned that during the pandemics.
Exactly. And sometimes there is a need for intervention. So that's why we built this, we call it the mood meter. And it's quite simple. It's, different emojis ranging from sad to excited. And it allows this children a safe space where they can go, even if it's just simply choosing the face. If they want to, you can speak into it and it can type down how they're feeling, I'm happy or I'm sad, and they can say why. Now, the beauty of this is that the parents can see it, the teachers can see it, and there's a calendar. So you can clearly visually identify if somebody's choosing sad, 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 then you can intervene. You can start, why is this child feeling sad? You can start a conversation with the parents, everything via the app. And then the child can get that support that they need, which, yeah, I think that's really important, especially after experiencing COVID. We've all felt what it feels like to go through a crisis. So, yeah.
I was to ask you a question, how Octoped is different from other educational apps on the market.
Yeah.
But now I'm wondering whether the whole things you said already kind of different, make it different. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, we always say, everybody that works on this project, we all say like Octoped has soul. That's one of the reasons it's different. We have soul. Like we really, we take a holistic approach. And we look at every stakeholder as an individual. And I think by taking the perspective of a millennial parent, it's built by millennial parents and millennial teachers for millennial parents and millennial teachers. Of course, Gen Z will also benefit from something like this. But I think that approach is very different.
Mm-hmm.
I think the kind of stakeholder well-being, holistic approach, having sold.
Yeah, because generally there are apps for the teachers, for headmasters separately, for children, and actually I can't recall any application that will create an ecosystem here. That's true. Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah.
Right, and what achievements brought you the most satisfaction so far?
I would say actually seeing the app come to life. It's one thing to have a vision. And I started as a non-technical founder. Of course, I really have studied ChatGPT, prompt engineering. I've really put a lot of hours into that. But I can't code. And so for me, designing an app seemed like this insurmountable, impossible task, especially this, because it is quite complex, having this.
If you want to build an ecosystem, it's complicated.
Exactly. So, I found a team of freelancers, and I shared my vision and, my ideas, and just working. We worked for 9 months, and by the end, we had a website, Octoped.ai, and we had 4 app designs, and that was amazing. I mean, what an achievement to go from nothing just in my head being, and I have this vision and it's going to look like this and this will happen, and then to see it. That was amazing, to see it actually visualized in front of me, and having that prototype was very exciting.
So if you could briefly specify at what development stage your product is at the moment.
Yeah, so we have all the designs, and we're ready now to build the MVP. So we're looking for the right team and partners to help us build the minimum viable product and also raise some funding. So that's where we're at this stage.
So you were leveraging some of the freelancers, and how does it work for you? Were you able to verify their work, or you had how does it look like for you?
So we've been working with freelancers. So it's, sorry, can you ask it again? I'm not quite sure the question.
I intend to find out what was your experience working with freelancers? Were you able to verify their work, or was it difficult for you as a non-technical person?
Yeah, so the designs were verified, by myself. I also got some advice from advisors and mentors. The problem we're facing really is that the investors, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation. They're interested, but they want to know that we have a full-time CTO on board, or at least, a co-founding CTO to oversee that everything is technically, perfect and there. So, this is the thing with working with freelancers is amazing, because it opens up a lot more opportunities. You don't have to, have a huge amount of money to bootstrap it yourself and do it that way. But there's challenges, because now it's harder to raise funding because we have freelancers. So now it's the stage where we need some more co-founders. We need to build our team, and I keep saying the dream team. So we're building the dream team now to take it to the next level.
But you don't want to build it with freelancers, but rather have it on board, right?
I really want whoever's on our team, I want it to matter to them as much as it matters to us. We're so passionate on the team we have now is really small, but we're so passionate. And so now it's time to find a technical co-founder who's as passionate as we are, who can come in, bring some fresh ideas, look at it and say, this is great, but we can also do this. Maybe we can improve that, and just take it that next level and be there for the longevity of it before we start writing the code and making it, into an actual app, functioning app. We want to make sure that whoever starts on that project will see it all the way through and stay with us, into the future.
So as far as I hear, you're looking for a CTO, co-founder, someone who will get engaged and
Yes.
will want to build with you and stay with you. Right. That's great goal. But what do you expect from such person, maybe?
The main thing will be to help us build it. That would be the main thing. And it would be equity only, but we would expect them to help us fundraise. So once we have the fundraising, we've completed the fundraising pre-seed round, that's when, we can take salaries from it. But until then, it's sweat equity, I suppose. That's how we've all been working. And
Yes.
that's where we're at.
Yes. And that's I guess that's a common path in developing startup. You have to start with investing your time and your capabilities into it.
Exactly.
This is super interesting. Thank you for that. I'm wondering, I would like to move a little bit into a subject of the future, because we know where we are, how did we get here, and maybe if you could share with us, maybe there's something that you have taught yourself, learned about education, creating this project.
So something I learned really that impacted me a lot was realizing, hearing the stories of the teachers and also the headmasters. So realizing how stressful it is to be a headmaster. I didn't really realize that when I started this. And also for teachers, of course, I've been a teacher myself. I know the pressure that is on the teacher's shoulders. But realizing that actually they're the heroes of the whole situation. And for me in the future, I see a more stress-free work environment. That's really what I want to go for. Is somewhere that takes into account not just the academic side, it's also the emotional side. I think that balance between EQ and IQ is essential for the future. And I think that's something that really we need to focus on, because it's a big problem now that so many people are struggling with, and we can solve it.
And don't you have a notion, maybe that's only me, that the digital technology won't help here, that it's not the role? And I'm just putting this out. Maybe it's not, maybe it's hindering, maybe creating another tool and another digital application, mobile app, and bringing your child closer to their mobiles. Maybe that's a wrong path. How would you answer to that?
So I would compare that to being an adult, a millennial adult, and knowing what it's like I said, to go outside not having an iPhone. I had a Game Boy. And it was very important to put that Game Boy down and go and climb a tree or something.
Have you got Tamagotchis at your
Tamagotchis.
Yes,
I was amazing with my Tamagotchi. Loved it. Yeah.
Difficult to understand today, I guess.
Yeah. But back then it was so
it
cool
was a thing.
to be able to use that. But yeah, so for me, I think you would compare it to, as an adult, doom scrolling versus micro learning. So I don't think that shutting out technology completely is the answer. I think it's more about using it in a healthy way. And I think that by introducing something like this, it allows for that opportunity to teach how, a healthy way to use technology. And also what's nice is this doesn't have to be used in school. So it's actually supporting it's supporting traditional environment, but without being in the classroom, because the teacher does most of their prep and lesson planning and everything. They do it outside of the classroom before the kids arrive. So that's where it helps, which means actually the teachers will have more time face-to-face with the kids. That they will be able to have more impact on their educational path, because it allows for more personalization. Each child, if they're struggling in one area, say even if they are in high school or something and they're studying Shakespeare, and they're struggling, AI has the ability to identify exactly what that child is struggling in specific areas, and then write a whole new version of a Shakespeare story or, anything, a piece of text that can directly help that child improve those specific areas. So this kind of tech,
impressive. I haven't thought about that.
place. Yeah, it has a place. I don't think kids should be in the school playing on their phones all the time. I don't. I think that they're going to be using their phones anyway. Why not give them something interesting and educational at the same time? So even the resource center, I really want teachers to be able to upload their own content as well, so that this way it's kind of like YouTube, but only teachers, qualified teachers working in schools, are allowed to add to it. So it protects them. Because at the moment, if you're watching YouTube with your kids watching, I don't know, Peppa Pig, there are some really horrible videos that can just pop up.
That's true.
And present dangers. So this is taking what's great about technology and putting it in a safe space. I mean, I built this for my daughter, right? So I've built it with her in mind. Like, okay, you know what? I'd rather not give her YouTube. I'd rather she had some form of version of YouTube that has all the same kind of Miss Rachel, Miss Money, Miss Apples, that are making their own videos, and they're on there, but we know they're safe and they're not going to get surprised by some scary video or advert,
on it inappropriate in any way.
Yeah.
That made me remember allegedly when the print books were introduced and were popularized at homes, people were afraid as well that they were telling that your kids shouldn't spend too much time reading books because they will lost creativity. They will not go out so much. And clearly, we don't. We're not afraid of that. But when speaking about mobiles, they are. I guess they are more. How to say that? Addictive, maybe.
Yes.
Even. Right. So this is a difficult balance to strike.
We actually did put a feature in there so that the parents can track exactly how much screen time the child has been using, how much have they used the app, and also they can set a limit so that the child is automatically logged out after maybe like 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 25 or an hour. Because that's something I really experienced when I was teaching online to children in China. It's changed now, but back then there were some kids that were, 6 years old, and they were staying up until 11 o'clock to have a lesson, and they were falling asleep. And I felt really uncomfortable. I thought, this child should be in bed, but I've been told I have to be here for this lesson, and here I am. So I agree. That's something that concerns me too. And I think controlling screen time is really important. That's why we put that feature in there.
Yeah, it's surely not the problem of the medium. It's the problem of the content and the appropriate time. Exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. I have one final question I'd like to ask you, and maybe there is something that there are lessons learned, but from the entrepreneurial side, from the founder's perspective, that you could share with us, so other EdTech founders, startup founders can learn from.
I think there's a few different things, pieces of advice that I always give out. I think the first one is you have to be so passionate. I think Elon Musk described starting a company as eating glass.
Yes.
And I think at times it is a bit like that. You have to really believe in your project and have a kind of drive, have that goal in mind. How are you going to impact the world and try and make it a better place? And a good place to start there is with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. I think picking one of those goals, looking at the different sections there, and you can perfectly identify, okay, I can actually help this, I can help that. And I think that's important. I think nowadays, if you're building a company, you should think that way. especially if it's a tech company, because there's so many opportunities to do good, and your motivations have to be more than I want to make a lot of money and sit on my yacht and drink champagne. It needs to be deeper than that, because it's not easy. And I think the other one is to be careful of people who want to take advantage of founders. So there's quite a lot of people out there who see founders as, a bit naive, and they go and they try and make money from you. So I think...
In what ways, if you could elaborate?
There's a few different ways, maybe playing on people's ego, like, oh, you're so great. And then, but now you have to give me money, and next thing you know,
for coaching.
Yeah, for coaching, which, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of amazing consultants and coaches out there, for sure, and they are worth paying for. But also be careful, because, they might promise you the world and they might not deliver. So, be careful with protecting yourself a little bit, but also recognize that there are people out there who will also help you for free. And that's because if you're doing something impactful and something you really believe in and something other people can get behind, then often, reaching out and saying, hey, are you interested? Could you give me some advice, or, anything? Often people are really nice, actually, if you, even if it's one meeting and it's very helpful, just, rely on a community as well. Build community. Don't do it all by yourself.
So it all goes from passion, then the community. If you build something impactful, the people will come around, build together with you, because you're together, and we are that kind of species that want to connect and want to collaborate, actually, to survive. And that was proven to work in the past for us. So that's great. But the interesting thing that you mentioned is not to, and sorry for putting that blunt, not to get screwed.
Watch your back a little bit, because I find that every time I get a message on LinkedIn now, it's somebody wanting money from me. So you have to be aware of that, and just kind of have a protective kind of wall, but then also not too high that nobody can come in. It's that balance, right? It's knowing who to trust.
Yeah, but one thing is I don't understand one thing that from what you've said. How does SDGs could help other founders here?
So there's a lot of information online where you can go and you can clearly see. So each goal, like it's goal 4, but then they have 4.1.
Yeah, that's
4.1.2, and if you're building a company, it's nice to go in there and read those and be like, okay, this is what they're trying to do, and this is how they think that we can help make the world a better place. Maybe I can help.
Yeah, but does it right? So it can help with inspiration, clearly, but can it help with financing as well, or in some other way?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, this is something I'm exploring now, actually. This is actually where I'm at the moment. I'm looking into the different organizations like AI for Good. That's something really, really great. There's so many lovely lectures and events on there where you can go and learn a lot and network as well. So it's another community, right? It's part of that the community.
And that's something that unites you around those goals, I guess.
Exactly, and it gives you focus. Right, it gives you that kind of focus on, how can I help? I think it's important not just to serve yourself, but also to serve the greater good, the community, to leave something of a legacy behind that, especially in education. Like now I'm building it for my daughter. So every decision I make, I'm thinking, okay, even for example, I added a feature that it's an emergency communication feature, because I was reading on the news, there was a shooting school shooting, and I thought, how can Octoped help in that scenario? Can it? And asking these kind of questions allows you to create something that, we've got an emergency communication feature where if something happens, they can automatically hit the button. Response times can be faster, even if it's a fire or an earthquake. Emergency instructions, there can be policies built around it. So it's having that kind of, future mindset of, okay, this is bigger than me. What do I want to leave behind for my daughter? I think a lot of business in the past wasn't done that way. And that's why there's a lot of problems in the world right now, especially, I'm not going to list everything, but I think having that kind of drive to make the world a better place somehow and leave behind a positive legacy for the next generations to come, I think that's really important. And I think the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are about that. So that's why it's a good resource, to kind of like starting point, I suppose, as well, for some people to go in and identify the problems and help come up with solutions.
That sounds like a beautiful vision. And I have one question that just came to my mind. How do you plan to finance all that? Because this is a clearly very ambitious plan. There are multiple features, very great, coming from the real need and real passion. And you can say that, no doubt. But on the other hand, the most difficult thing, and it's especially for educational startups, is building a sustainable business model on top of that. And have you thought about that? And what are your plans here?
That's it. And like when we saw the pricing, we said, okay, well, actually, because I have quite a bit of experience as well, volunteering and visiting different kinds of, schools. One of my first experiences why I got into education was actually in Cambodia. There was a street school there. That every day I walked past and there was these kids and they were sat, in someone's garden learning English, and most of them didn't even have shoes. They were literally from the street. They were orphans, most of them. But this tuk-tuk driver said, no, I'm going to teach them English. And every day I walked past, I put $1 in the box. And then one day they said, come in, like, will you come in and just answer some questions? And I did, and I answered questions, and they asked me things like, are your cows friendly like our cows are? And I'm like, oh, well, I don't really know many cows, but I guess so. So when I was there, they didn't have hardly anything. And they were so passionate, and they just wanted to learn. One day, they didn't even have any electricity. They literally didn't have electricity. They had to learn by candlelight. And they all sat there and they all learned. And like something like when I think about this, I also, when I'm building Octoped, I have that in my mind. I'm like, a lot of the time they want to provide support for their kids. They want to buy them books. They want to give them, pens and paper, but maybe they can't afford it, but they can maybe afford £1 per month. And then if that's access to all their school materials for £1 per month, I think that's doable. And that's where the business model kind of comes from. And school gets their own, it's white label. So they get their own platform. It doesn't say Octoped. And we could do an Octoped free version, but I'm very apprehensive about that because, often when it's free, it comes at a cost. You need to advertise or you need to make money somehow. Like they always say, if you're not paying, then you're the product.
Then you're the product, exactly.
That doesn't work with kids. I don't want the kids to be the product, So for me, it's that's why we said, okay, £1 per child per month. Obviously, it can change, but that's our business model. We were like, that's doable.
And are you thinking about, for example, collaborating with governments and like maybe, because it could be like nationwide financed?
That's actually a huge point why we are here in Brussels now. Like, I'm not in Brussels. I'm close to Brussels and Antwerp. But that's an angle that I'm trying now is I want to go to the events here. I want to I've got an advisor actually who I've not spoken to in ages, but she's lovely, and she works for the Board of Innovation for the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
And until now, I didn't feel ready to go to her and say, here's my plan, because it was in my head. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
now I have the designs. I want to go to the European Union and say, hey, here are my designs.
Mm-hmm.
We can translate it into any language. It offers personalized education. It solves the problem of why these teachers are standing in your streets protesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, in the future, it can even integrate AR, VR. You can.
Yes, exactly.
So it's very adaptable and resilient. So I'm hoping
Mm-hmm.
that somebody there will be able to help me. That's another side of it.
Honestly, the longer we talk, the more lights are lighting up in my head.
We know how much we need to raise to get it built with freelancers. It's not a crazy amount, to be honest with you. It's doable, but this is challenging. Like I said, this is why we now want to raise the team, and we need some support with this area. This is why we're not only looking for a CTO, we're looking for anyone who thinks that they can come in and help, and they are passionate about education technology, about helping the United Nations with their sustainable development goals. We're looking for that team. I think that's what I've realized is you can't do it alone. And there are people out there who will have that knowledge, and they will say, yeah, I know exactly how to help do this, so X, Y, Z, and that's
Yes.
where I'm at now. I'm reaching out to my network. I'm contacting. I'm writing emails and letters, and hopefully I'll find my people, my dream team.
I feel like we could talk like this forever.
Yeah.
The subject of education, our children, creating of a products, technology, it's a real bottomless pit, I would say. But sadly, we have to put a full stop somewhere.
Yeah.
And let it be here. So, Sophie, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you too. I really enjoyed our conversation.